Hey guys, thank you for listening to the work. This is going to be episode number 11. Episode 10 is going to be archived because I didn't have the video set up and all of that. So today's the day that the work transitions from audio Spotify to also video format as well, because I think that's the new age, and I think I want to continue with the podcast, and I want to continue sharing, and I don't want to just hide behind the Spotify lens. So this is my little mock studio setup. So episode 11 is dedicated to, let me figure out how to pronounce this wonderful human's name, Tahira Amara. What a beautiful name. I posted something on my Instagram. I was actually so an update on why, if anybody listens to the podcast and follows my Instagram and sees a transition and sees a shift and all of that, certainly definitely a part of my reality. So pretty out there with myself, or putting myself out there, using my Instagram more or less to do that, just opening my mind and putting it out there. That's kind of where I was at, and in that space, I asked a question. I just said, if anybody has any questions, I'll dedicate my next podcast to that question. And at that time, I had said, I made a little Instagram story, and I just said, have you ever seen a ghost? And so that was the question that came from Tahira, was about ghosts. Like, how do I feel about ghost or the paranormal, and all of that. So that's going to be where we'll take this train of thought. But to just update and recap why this is episode 11. There's been only 9 episodes so far, and 10 is kind of where I got stuck. So the work, or this podcast, more or less, is just essentially that. It's just the work, and it's literally just a guy that's just like trying to do internal work or whatever, just living life. So that'll be something that I probably work to fix. So yeah, just doing the work, and so episode 1 was created really like a birth child of the pandemic, I guess. It's weird because the pandemic was upon us. We had not yet officially announced that there was any cases in New York City, but that same week, before they started to say, okay, there is a virus here in the country, I had some really great friends, and they were like, what do you want to do with your life? You're here in New York just kind of working as a trainer. You used to be a fighter. What's up? And I was like, I'd like to start a podcast, man. I think that would be cool. And so shout out to Dimitri and Laura for being such a wonderful humans and helping me get started with this, and teaching me, showing me, and giving me. So I have the tools to do this podcast, so why not do it? And so that was episode 1, and that was pre-pandemic, the same week. And then my older brother passed away. I flew to Florida, and I only had 1 episode done. Oh, I didn't even have the episode done yet. I had it maybe recorded, and I really wanted to come back to New York and and do this podcast, even though there was a pandemic and people weren't coming back to New York. Anyway, so I came back, and within the summertime and all of that, I tried to make these episodes that were kind of just an expression of what I felt was true, for me and my experience. I wasn't trying to speak about it as gospel, but yeah. It's fascinating because when I first started to do this podcast, now you can see me, so I can kind of go on more tangents. There's a heating system in the old New York apartments. These are pre-war buildings, and so if you hear like the hissing of the radiator, that's what's happening. So when I started this podcast, the radiator was going, and today is the first day the radiator is back going. So needless to say, in the time of a quiet apartment, more hot apartment, I was only able to get 8 or 9 done, and now I have the inspiration to sit here, and now the radiator is going. So that's where we are currently at today. And today is like what? It's Saturday, the 19th. So Tahira, we are going to talk about ghosts. And do I believe in ghosts? What are ghosts? Paranormal. I'm not a huge ghost guy. I'm not a huge, I guess, contemplator of that realm of existence. I don't necessarily think about it like that. I think about spirits a lot. I think about that idea and that concept. I think about like a living energy and and intelligence and experience that sometimes is beyond our understanding or our realm of comprehension. Like you can't really grasp it or see it or feel it, but it's still there. It's like intangible. And I think about that when contemplating the idea of the paranormal. It's just paranormal. It's just like outside the normal. It's outside of something that you can readily like comprehend or understand. So you label it and you give it a definition. And I think that's true for most things that we can't understand, and we create a picture of it and something that we can process and think about. So it's easy to imagine spirit or an information that is intangible and you can't see if you throw like a white sheet on it, and then all of a sudden all of that intangible is inside of that white sheet, and you have a ghost inside of there. You really just have empty space. And so if you're asking me like, do I believe in ghosts or do I believe in empty space with limitless possibilities? Yeah, for sure, man. 100%. I think that empty space is filled with ghosts, is filled with limitless possibilities, filled with information, is filled with all of that. So I guess that's kind of how I think about the spirit world or realms. I as of lately have been kind of thinking about things more on the lines of information, more on the lines of like what like a modern brain can conceptualize given the data that we have. Did you hear that? The radiator. So I think that's kind of why I took a break from making the podcast, and now have the inspiration to kind of sit in front of the camera and kind of speak a little bit more grounded about what it is, the work is to me. And again, it does go back to George Gurdjieff's work. Like really, it's weird. It's like I've dropped his name so many times, and I never really knew why I was, so enamored by this man's work. Because most of the people that I come in contact with, or my peer group, anybody really, truly, anybody that like I know doesn't like George Gurdjieff. We all have our people, that we enjoy. Some people like LeBron James, like what he says is gospel. That's the King James version. They hear that. And, some people like Jay-Z, some people like Gandhi. We all have our people that resonate. And, mine was always, for a long time was Gurdjieff, many years. I'm like, yo, this dude is like speaking my language, man, and actually I can't even understand what he's saying, but for some reason he's saying, he's speaking my language. And it's the concept of the fourth way that has started to kind of make more sense of why, like, I needed a podcast called The Work. Like, what am I doing as a human? Am I doing the work? And what is the work? Again, so, we talk about that. And not to detour too far away from this concept of ghost, again, Tahira. I hope I'm saying that right. Beautiful name. Because with Gurdjieff's work, you can really loop around quite a bit and really loop right back into Buddhism quite easily. You can do that with a lot of things called induction. I think I've said that before. And it's a way that you help facilitate understanding by finding commonalities in certain philosophies and trains of thoughts. You can just say, okay, like, I don't have to subscribe to just one, but if multiple people are saying the same thing, I can develop a truth and say, okay, well, that's probably true. Because Gurdjieff said it, Buddha said it, Gandhi said it, Mother Teresa said it, John Lennon said it. So maybe peace of mind is important. These types of little things, right? So you're now a modern man who's developing his own truth or his faculties for awareness. And that's what finally kind of clicked to me, like what Gurdjieff was saying with the fourth way. Why he was saying there needed to be a fourth way to develop as a human consciously and evolve. Because the way that humans used to do it, to break free of the system, to counter the culture, blase, was the way of the monk, the way of the yogi, and the way of the fakir, was how he described it. And the fakir was more like a Sufi mystic, Rumi-esque. I think Islam is the base. And those were methods that humans used to use to kind of transcend, the conditions. Like, what are the conditions? And Buddha says is that it's suffering. That life is suffering, man. It's just like all suffering. And, that's not a truth that's readily accepted, especially in the West. It's not a way that we tend to like to see the world as a suffering palette, as a palace or a place for suffering. And I mean, there's truth to that, and it's bleak and it's dark. I think I've mentioned that before, and but it's in the understanding of the suffering that you can begin to alleviate yourself from the causes of the suffering, which is, for Buddha, was just the attachments to things and the aversions to things, the fear of things. So fear is a big one. And so why not, again, contemplate this idea of ghost? I kind of segued a bit into how this podcast had to take a little bit of a hiatus to develop into a place of understanding what's called the fourth way, which would be modern man's ability to use his tools and resources and faculties of awareness to increase his capabilities. So that was why, Gurdjieff was very poignant. And this is what's cool now, because I'm on screen, so I can look up the word poignant and I don't even gotta edit it. Poignant. Evoking a keen sense of sadness or regret. A poignant reminder of the passing of time. Evoking a keen sense of sadness or regret. I would say that, that at its highest development of comprehension of the fourth way in Gurdjieff's work, it can definitely leave a poignant taste in your mouth. Yeah. Keen sense of sadness and regret. And why would you say such a thing, to a path why would you suggest that I contemplate, what you're talking about if it's only going to lead me to a poignant state of mind. And I always just kind of reference what I was looking for when I went to India, and one of the first like swamis that I talked to, and asking like, hey, I'm in India now and I want to be enlightened. What should I do? And he's like, and I was like, I want to be enlightened. I want to practice yoga, and I want to like get really flexible and look really awesome. And those are my goals: enlightenment, sexy, and successful. Then he said, you should go to Varanasi and watch them cremate people. Should watch them burn dead people. And I was like, no, that doesn't sound like fun. I don't want to do that. And I didn't understand why. Like, why would I go all the way to India, and why would this guy that I'm obviously here to practice yoga and be sexy, flexible, successful, and enlightened? I want to be all those things. And I didn't want to go into a dirty place and watch people get burnt that were once living. And, as time would go on, I would experience death more personally and closely, and realize how important it is to understand these things and to contemplate them, and to see that part of life. So the idea of what a ghost is, is a ghost just a living concept, right? Like an idea. The ghost of who, comes to you at any given time. So again, going back to this idea of empty space and infinite potential, like how much information is actually in this space right now. I know that I have this, and this is a receiver. So this grabs nothing, obvious. So essentially to the hand, there's nothing here. But this grabs a lot of data. So this now shows you that there's a lot of information like right here. Because it's right here. How did it get to here? Right? Somehow it's streaming through this space. It has to, because this is here, and now information is from the ethos to here. So a ghost, in the sense of how we put them on TV and depict them. I think it's all true. It's all correct. However we can imagine something truly, however you want to imagine it, that's turning out to kind of be the law of the experience that we're having. I'm realizing that we've advanced as a species conceptually in the brain. The brain has advanced. That's actually true. It's not the same brain that was on the planet 1,000 years ago. Tools helped advance the brain. Technology, your eyes glued to screens, taking in data, and the brain evolving because of that. Millennials and 90s kids and Hey Arnold and Nickelodeon, created the new species, a new brain of processing data, a new data processor. So that's what Gurdjieff was already onto when he said that there needed to be a fourth way, because those other ways, the human brain doesn't respond to those methods anymore. It's not the same brain. So that's the actual thing to put into consideration. That even if you were born in maybe if you're born in still a rural Tibet, and that lineage of genealogy hasn't been corrupted, then that human vessel probably has some different capabilities to access chakra energy and subtle energies and all of that. So it's really it's down to that. It's the sensitivity of the human body and its inability to process sensitivities that limits it from being able to transcend higher states like the yogis of the past. So we kind of reduced it down to the gross elements in the modern age, and now we do the only the real physical part of yoga and exercise, and we get really great at it. We got really great physical bodies. But the yogis, they talk about there being 5 different bodies. So let's see, the five different bodies yoga, the 5 layers of being. So there's 5 layers. Let's see, your first layer. According to the yoga tradition, every one of us has 5 bodies, each made of increasingly finer grades of energy. The 5 progressively subtler bodies that compose our personality are described in a yoga classic called the Taittiriya Upanishad. Human beings consist of a material body built from the food they eat. Those who care for this body are nourished by the universe itself. Inside this is another body made up of life energy. It fills the physical body and takes its shape. Those who treat this vital force as divine experience, excellent health, longevity, because this energy is the source of physical life. So those who treat it with treat this vital force as divine, will experience vital health. Within the vital force is yet another body. This one made of thought energy. It fills the 2 denser bodies and has the same shape. Those who understand and control the mental body are no longer afflicted by fear. So no fear, man. That's the key. That's the key. So that one resonated. No fear. You got to work on your thoughts. You got to really work on the thoughts that are impregnating this body of yours. It's very important. That's why this podcast is very important. I wouldn't be sitting here with my pajamas on doing this if it wasn't important. Deeper still lies another body comprised of intellect. It permeates the 3 denser bodies and assumes the same form. Those who establish their awareness here free themselves from unhealthy thoughts and actions and develop the self-control necessary to achieve their goals. So the intellect. Deeper still than the thought, the energy. So you got to think about it. It's like the food you eat is like the gross level. That's like the easiest level to build. It's like you could just eat food and pretty much hunt and do all that. And if you existed on that, you'd live, you'd be a human. But that doesn't mean that the other bodies aren't still a part of like the conscious, like incredible. So like you have the ability to contemplate that. That's what makes you human. So do or do not like contemplate. It doesn't mean that these things don't exist. So that they're just helping you understand it from the past. They were giving you clues and tips and all of that. So the food that you eat, the material, life energy. So think about your energetic body, and deeper than even just the energy. So when you're doing like the asana practice, when you're doing yoga, you're working the physical body a lot, and if you get there, you're working the energetic body. That took me about 10 years to actually taste the energetic body, which is like that currently like where I'm at is like the early stages of, like there's an energetic body. It's real. Like it actually does exist. Like I'm healthier when I feed that part of me and I exist in it and I try to cultivate it. And my physical body actually feels better. So that's been kind of crazy. So it's those who understand and control the mental body are no longer afflicted by fear. So within the vital life force, then you go deeper. So deeper physical, vital life force. Deeper than that, your thoughts. Okay, so you're working with how you feed yourself physically. Now you're doing yoga, you're breathing, subtle energy, and now you're aware of the thoughts. And deeper than the thoughts lie the intellect. It permeates 3 denser bodies and assumes the same form. Those who establish their awareness here free themselves from unhealthy thoughts and actions and develop the self-control necessary to achieve their goals. Because they're not even thinking about pointless stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you got a responsibility when you get on that Instagram and you get on, these sites. You got a responsibility. Like, what do you feed your intellect with? You know what I'm saying? It's important. It keep you from, building some layers of the body that aren't useful. So hidden inside it is yet a subtler body composed of pure joy. It pervades the other bodies and shares the same shape. It is experienced as happiness, delight, and bliss. These 5 bodies are called koshas or sheaths in Sanskrit because each fits in the next like a sword. Only the densest is made of matter as we know it. The other 4 are energy states, invisible to the physical eye, though we can easily sense their presence inside of us when we pay close attention, since the inner bodies are the source of our well-being during life and are the vehicles we travel after death. Ancient India's yogis developed specific exercises to strengthen and tone each one in turn. So maybe one day I'll go into a whole podcast on the 5 bodies and whatnot. This one was a dedication to Tahira. She's from the West Coast. Never met her before on my Instagram. Well, I mean, I've seen her on my Instagram, and she takes the most killer pictures. So I'll tag her so you guys can, if you listen, go follow her if you want some pure joy. And that's what's kind of cool about this experience with the podcast and kind of like breaking myself open, like cracking myself open on my Instagram, like to just kind of get to a space where I'm like just doing this podcast on video. I was like really had to like break down. So I'll explain that one day. I definitely can't wait to explain it because it's something that's very much a passion of mine. So definitely has to do with psychedelics, which I am nervous to say, but I'm a big fan of, man. I'm a big fan of it. And not like the LSD or this, that, and the other, but I'm a big fan. Like the Michael Pollan book, How to Change, I got it over there, How to Change Your Mind. I think that's important. I think that's really important to take into consideration the need to change the mind. I tell people sometimes lately, or as I'm like talking to them and listening and whatever, having conversations, I'm just like, yo, man, you got a firewall in that brain. You got a lot of firewalls in. You try to bring in any new concept into that noggin of yours, and it is getting hit by a firewall. It can't even go. It can't even get in. So we live in a society of brains that have been developed with firewalls, tons of them. And we know how machines and data and all of that works. So we kind of know, we know what we don't really want to know, that we're more mechanical than we want to give it credit for. And we're trying to solve it under the microscope. We're really just studying ourselves and recreating ourselves, even with the computers, just reverse engineering of a better piece of technology that you already exist inside of. And that's the poignant reality of it. Poignant. Okay, so there you go, man. That one also is for you, Amber. Yeah. You got me inspired to do the podcast, so here it is on video. Yo, Matt, see what you can do. Work some magic. So episode 11. This is the work dedicated to Tahira. A little bit about ghosts, not much. I mean, I don't got much. I watched Ghostbusters. That's cool. Casper. But again, it's like more spirits and information. That's kind of where my brain is at. But if you want to talk higher intelligence and extraterrestrials, you let me know. And we'll do that on the next one. Okay? Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.